As we head into 2025, a lot of you would think that mobile phones have already peaked, and there's not much else you can do or add to them. I would half agree, as I believe that there's definitely been a certain peak, but there's still so much more out there. Foldable phones are that eventual next step. Even Apple is starting to make a foldable phone. For the longest time, I used to carry a phone and a large 9-inch tablet because the phone screen was never big enough for me to read or watch or game on whenever I was on the train or traveling around. This is where a foldable phone comes in. In my hand is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6, and it's been out for about 6 months now. And while this phone initially retailed at a price that's comparable to a premium laptop, it has since come down to a more reasonable price if you shop around. So what makes a foldable phone worth the same price as a laptop? And is it worth getting in 2025? Let's find out. Hey, it's Nathaniel, and today I'm going to talk to you in depth about the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. There's a lot of topics that I want to cover, so let's just dive straight in. Given that it is now the 7th attempt at designing a foldable phone, the original Galaxy Fold did come out twice as a Fold 1.5. Samsung has continued down the path of a refined evolution. This phone is incredibly thin for what it can do, being only 12.1 millimeters thin when folded and 5.6 millimeters thin when unfolded. It weighs just 239 grams, which brings it pretty close to the weight of some other premium phones like the iPhone 16 Pro Max or the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. The closer in weight it is to phones like these, I think the more normal and pocketable these become. The Fold 6 comes with this enhanced aluminium armor frame, which provides a more drop and scratch resistance. I really like this more squarish design as it makes the phone look more symmetrical and more like a normal phone, especially when it's closed. You would almost mistake it for a normal phone, albeit a bit thick and heavy, until you realize you can split the phone in half and unfold it. The Fold 6 has an IP48 rating, which is insane to think about, considering the fact that the phone has a hinge and can fold in half, but still has water resistance and also has a form of dust resistance. To be specific, the dust resistance is for particles up to 1 millimeter in size and water resistance of up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. The fingerprint sensor is built into the power button, which is kind of smart as it allows you to unlock the phone whether it's folded or unfolded, and it's pretty quick as well. The phone also has S Pen support, although it's unfortunately only on the unfolded screen. One can assume that they skipped the front display to reduce weight, thickness, etc., but they also realized it's just too narrow of a screen to write on effectively. Unfortunately, there's no S Pen slot like there is on the S24 Ultra due to the phone's thinness, so the only real way to carry the S Pen with you is to buy the official case that has it built in, or find an aftermarket case with an S Pen holder for it. I did figure out a solution though that could work for future Fold devices: magnets. If they're strong enough in the hinge, it's possible to have the S Pen stick to the phone and still be relatively easy to hold one-handed. Food for thought perhaps, Samsung? On the front display, you get a 6.3-inch dynamic AMOLED display that refreshes up to 120 Hz, which gives it that real smoothness to whatever you're scrolling through. It's really nice to look at, and once you get used to that very fast refresh rate, when you look at other devices that don't have it, you'll actually notice it's just not as smooth. It has a peak brightness of 2600 nits, which really helps you see your screen out in the sunlight, although there's no anti-reflective coating on it like the S24 Ultra has, which I feel would have been more helpful than a higher peak brightness, as the reason you need a high brightness is to push through the sun's reflection. The outer cover display has a 22 by 1.9 aspect ratio that's much more narrower than what you normally get on a non-foldable phone, which is usually 20 by 9. For some people, they might find that the narrow body is great to type with one-handed, but two-handed typing will feel a little bit cramped. For all those iPhone 13 mini users or Android equivalents, it's the perfect size for you. But because of the narrow body, any kind of video consumption not only looks quite small on the screen, but also gives you these large black bars on the side. Video games, on the other hand, will look small and really zoomed out, depending on the game. So unless you like playing on a small screen in ultra-wide mode, it might get uncomfortable in that regard. I'm also led to believe that this was a deliberate design choice, because almost anything you do is too narrow to properly view on, so you're forced to open the device to view it better. It's like giving you a reason to unfold the device on purpose, because why else would you get this particular phone unless to use the big screen? And what a big screen it is. When unfolded, you're presented with a 7.6-inch dynamic AMOLED display, also with 128Hz refresh rate and 2600 nits of peak brightness. It has a 20.9 by 18 aspect ratio, which gives it an almost squarish display. Everything is so much better on the inside display, whether it's viewing websites, looking at spreadsheets, reading ebooks, video, gaming, you name it. Because this is a folding device, the inner display obviously folds in half when you close it. This inevitably leaves a small crease smack bang in the middle. However, you don't necessarily notice it when you look at it from straight on. However, it's still there if you catch it at the right angle. I find that unless I'm actively thinking about it or looking for it specifically, I tend to not notice that it's there. It's running the latest Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip and has 12 gigs of RAM, so everything feels quick and snappy. It comes in 256, 512, and 1 terabyte storage sizes and comes in 3 main colors: this silver shadow, pink, and navy. And there are some online Samsung exclusive colors as well. The latest Wi-Fi 6E is included, so the phone is future-proofed and also has Bluetooth 5.3. Currently, it's running Android 14 and One UI 6.1.1, but the latest is Android 15 and One UI 7 is currently in beta, so a new update should be coming out in the not too distant future. The Fold 6 will also get 7 years of Android OS and security updates, so if you're someone who can hold on to their phone for 7 years, you're pretty set. The main camera is a 50 megapixel sensor, while the telephoto is a 10 megapixel sensor with 3 times zoom, and the ultra-wide is a 0.6 times 12 megapixel sensor. You can record up to 8K video at 30 frames per second, but be mindful that a 60-second video takes up 600 megabytes. So you can run out of space on your phone pretty quickly, not to mention that there's not that many TVs or screens that can display 8K content. These are not premium cameras like on the S24 Ultra, but they will do a good enough job. It's a shame that when you're paying for such an expensive device, the quality of the cameras don't match its price, but it's because if they had added premium cameras, the cost of the device would have increased as well. I kind of wish that they had released a super premium phone like a Z Fold 6 Ultra at the same time with all the best specs. And they actually did do that. It's called the Z Fold Special Edition, but it came out after I had already got this Z Fold 6, and it's only available in Korea. The front selfie camera is 10 megapixels and does reasonably well, and there's also a 4 megapixel selfie camera on the inner display. That is actually an under display camera, which is kind of cool. Everyone can agree though that it does not do a good job of taking selfie photos at all, and most likely you'd be using it for video calls, which a 4 megapixel camera will suffice for. I like though that it does a really good job of disappearing when not in use, as it blends in with the rest of the display. But of course, if you're actively trying to look for it, you will spot it. But it's nice to give that illusion of it not being there at all. A nifty little trick is that you can also share the viewfinder of the main camera with the outer cover display, so that whoever is in the photo can see what you see, but it's also great for when you want to take a selfie, so you can see yourself while using the better main camera sensors. Inside, you'll get a 4,400 milliamp battery, which has been the same for 4 generations now. It's a bit disappointing that the battery size has remained the same all these years, but it has been offset by an ever-decreasing phone thickness each generation and a more efficient processor chip, so you should still get great battery life. Between the outer cover display and the inner display, I roughly get about 4 to 5 hours of screen on time, which includes usage of both the outer cover display and the larger inner display. I'd consider myself more of a heavy user, so how I use the device might be different to how other people use it. It comes with 25-watt wired fast charging, which will charge from 0 to 50% in 30 minutes, and 100% takes 95 minutes. But again, it has had 25-watt wired charging since the Fold 2. Even the S24 Ultra has 45-watt fast charging, so it's another knock on the fact that this is supposed to be the other premium phone from Samsung, and yet does not have the same premium capabilities. I suspect that the Note 7 experience still haunts Samsung 9 years on, and they're playing it super safe. It also supports 15-watt wireless charging, but it takes much longer to charge fully, taking close to 3.5 hours. It's more of a convenience not having to mess around plugging a cord in, and I'm usually using it at night when I don't need to charge it quickly. What's great about Samsung devices though is that they provide reverse wireless charging for your accessories like smartwatch or your headphones, when they run out of battery and need a little juice. Samsung has been doing this Fold stick for over 5 years now and was even developing it for a few years more. So they really perfected the software experience for the consumer and thought of basically everything. It's a lot of the little details, like when you transition between the outer cover display and the inner display, you can choose to have the same home screen layout when you open it up, or have it set up in a different way to make it feel like a separate device. Or even when you move to the inner display, the navigation bar shrinks and moves to the bottom right-hand side, so it's easily accessible. Sorry, left-hand users. There's also this handy taskbar to be able to access your favorite apps, which is a great feature, especially when you're using the large display. And you can even save your most commonly used paired apps. The multitasking experience is also fantastic, as you can either have the apps side by side or one on top of the other. They've actually been using this multi-window feature since the Note 3 back in 2013. I'm usually using apps side by side when I'm going through my finances or on top of one another when I'm gaming and watching something at the same time. You can even have up to 3 apps multitasking at the same time. However, I've personally never used it that way. I actually will use a side-by-side window and then my third app as a floating window, which generally tends to be the calculator when I'm going through my finances. But it can be any app as well, such as WhatsApp or Instagram or anything else. They're resizable to whatever size you desire, and when you're not using it, you can just minimize it until you need it again. You can have up to 5 floating window apps running at the same time as well. They've also thought about how you would tackle apps on a big screen. Most Android apps are designed for a candy bar phone and either don't have a landscape orientation or don't have a tablet version in their app design. For apps like Spotify or YouTube, they will recognize that when you use the inner display, it's a tablet and will adjust the app to fit the screen. But some apps just see it as a large display and will stretch themselves to the full screen. Those apps are then stretched out and don't necessarily make it look good or work properly. So it's great that Samsung have built in this feature that allows you to choose whether or not you want a particular app in full screen mode, or if you want to be a more normal 16:9 or 4:3 aspect ratio. I find some apps work better in the smaller aspect ratios like Instagram, and in particular video games, as most games will just zoom in when using the full screen mode, whereas the 16:9 or 4:3 aspect ratio won't stretch the games out as much. You do end up with some form of black bars, but I can live with that if the game looks more normal in comparison. I would say that flex mode is a nice touch, being able to use the Fold while it's half bent, but I haven't found an app that really requires you to bend the phone in half apart from the camera app. Using it for something like YouTube does sound ideal in theory, but the video is so small that you're better off just getting a case with a stand built into it to be able to see the videos better. Samsung's investment into their Galaxy AI solutions is so big, it needs its own section to focus on it. It even has its own tab within the settings page, so you can see what it's capable of doing. While there is a lot in there, I've broken this part down into 2 sections. Primarily, the AI functions I believe are actually useful to people, and the ones that I think are neat but more of a gimmick. This is just my personal opinion, and what I find as useful or a gimmick might not be the same for you. So take my word with a grain of salt. First off the ranks, I would say Interpreter is relatively useful, but most likely only when you're traveling or trying to communicate with your grandparents who don't speak English. You access it from the notification bar, and it will allow you to converse with another person by live translating what you say into the selected language. What's great about the Fold 6 is you can use the outer cover display as a screen to display what you're trying to ask the other person. There's also a listening mode, which is basically an always-on mode and will translate in one direction, so if someone has a speech, it'll translate the whole thing for you. Next is Note Assist, which lives entirely in the Samsung Notes app. If you take notes within the app, it can convert your writing into text and automatically format it for you, summarize it, and even translate it into another language. You can also record audio within the Notes app, and it will transcribe for you what it hears with Transcript Assist. This is built into both the Notes app, but also the voice recorder app as well. Essentially, it will break out what's being said into the individual speakers and transcribe it all for you, and it can also provide a summary of the discussion. The Browsing Assist function is a more simpler affair and is built into Samsung's browser app. It will essentially summarize whatever it detects on that particular web page. Now, from here, I'd say that these next 3 AI features are what I think are the top 3 most useful ones you can use. The third most useful is Chat Assist. This is probably one of the more handy uses of AI that you would use on a daily basis. Built into the Samsung keyboard is a little AI button which gives you the capability to use chat translation, composer, writing styles, and spelling and grammar. For certain apps, if you're wanting to speak to someone in another language, it will be able to detect what the other person is saying and translate it for you, but also write something back in a particular language you choose. Composer will help you come up with something to say, depending on what it may be. Say you need to request more funds from accounting to continue the project you've been tasked. You can choose different styles and whether or not you want to sound professional or casual or even polite. Writing style is just rewording what you've written in different voices, and spelling and grammar is your good old-fashioned spell check. In second place as the most useful AI feature is Photo Assist. It allows you to edit any errors in photos and replace it with something it will generate for you. Or if you wanted to, you can resize something and the AI will fill in the gaps. It's great if you have an accidental photo bomber or an unsightly object that you want to remove, or if you just wanted to edit the photo and move things around. The number one feature I think is the most useful is Circle to Search. It's easy to use and it's accessible from everywhere, even when you're in the camera app. It's basically a more advanced version of Google Lens. Anything you see you want to know what it is, you just circle it and Google will search it for you, whether it's something you saw on a web page or something you see in real life. The best part about it is even if it's a picture, it can detect the text on the screen and you can then highlight it and copy and paste it or save it for later. And if you're looking at another language, it will detect it and translate it for you as well. As someone who reads manga and webtoons, this is such a game changer for me, as sometimes I'm impatient and can't wait for the English translations. Or even for me to practice learning another language, I can highlight text and have it translated for me, so I know what they're saying. It's incredibly powerful. Now, here's where I go into the more gimmicky AI features. Call Assist allows you to make a call to someone, say a restaurant you want to go to while you're traveling overseas, and you want to make a reservation. The call will detect the language on the other side, and it will translate for each caller the conversation you have into the respective languages. While it's great in theory, the problem is that because the translating is done in real time, there is a lag between when someone says something and when it gets translated. Also, how often would you call someone who speaks another language that you can't understand? Portrait Studio is where the AI will use a picture of someone's face and it will generate an image in a variety of styles, such as comic, 3D, cartoon, watercolor, or sketch. While it definitely shows off the capabilities of generative AI, and the images it creates are pretty incredible, unless you're constantly taking selfies of yourself in different poses and then processing them through Portrait Studio for your friends or social media, it's something you most likely won't use very often, if at all. Sketch to Image allows you to basically draw whatever you want on an existing image, say a bee or a cat or a flower, or whatever you can think of, and it will generate its best attempt at what you've drawn with varied results. The problem is, if you're a terrible artist like myself, probably 90% of the global population, you'll have a hard time trying to draw what you want exactly unless it's something really basic. And then what it generates tends to look a little bit out of place. Although what it generates is pretty decent from my shoddy artist drawings, so you have to give them props for being able to decipher what I'm trying to draw. Lastly, Instant Slow-Mo allows you to essentially slow down any video that you have using AI to generate frames in between the existing frames just by clicking on the video at the time you want to slow it down. It's a really great trick if you happen to catch something on video and want to slow it down, but it's something where you have to be there at the right place at the right time to catch it on film before you can instantly slow-mo it. So while I personally love the feature, the number of chances you'd actually get to use it is far and few in between, so it's more of a gimmick than useful. It's incredible the things a larger screen allows you to do, whether it's reading an ebook, watching Netflix or YouTube, or playing a video game. And being able to fold that larger screen into a smaller one when you're done is a technical marvel. You could say that you can do all of those things on a laptop of a similar price, and that's true. But it's not as portable or as cool as when you take out your phone and split it in half. I will admit that this phone is most likely for people who really like the latest technology and are power users. But if you're someone who enjoys mobile gaming, watching content, and reading, and want to do all of it in one place, then a foldable phone like the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6 is the device for you. So if you're a bit tired of the same old standard phone design and want to try something new, then give this a crack. Thanks again for staying until the end. If you liked what you saw, then please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so you can see more content like this. And feel free to drop a comment down below on your thoughts about the Samsung Fold 6 or what you thought about this video. I'm always looking for ways to improve my content for you guys. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.